Hi, everybody. Welcome to the next section of the presentation. Today is July 31st, 2019. Thanks for watching. So the next piece of this main chart book that I'd like to talk about briefly are the volume profiles. So you can kind of see them. They're really light on the right-hand side of each of the charts. Okay, I'm going to go to the compare chart book here just so we can see them a little in greater detail. What this is basically showing is a volume profile for the day, which is this one here, the first one, and then a volume profile for the week, which is this one here. So I'm going to kind of zoom out a little bit. You'll see the weekly profile goes all the way down here because we're near the highs of the week, right? So the reason that I put this up here is because when you use VWAP, okay, you're inherently relying on the importance of volume because you're basing this entire idea on a volume weighted average price, which means you're implicitly caring about volume, not just price movement. And so when people look at volume profile, they're usually looking for a couple things. They're looking for the nature of the distribution of the day. This is a pretty normal distribution. There's a little weirdness down here from earlier, but this is a pretty normal, sort of bell curve shaped distribution. They're looking for the market to rally around. I don't mean rally as in go up. I mean magnetize towards this what is called the point of control, which is this pink line, which basically is the price at which the majority of the volume has traded. So if there's not a lot of conviction one way or another, the market has a tendency, in theory, to revert back to this point of control area. All right, and that kind of fits in too with our counter trend sort of idea. A lot of volume profile traders are trading the market long and short back towards the point of control if it appears to be range bound or quiet. Okay. And then the other thing that's important is on the daily profile are areas of very little volume. So sometimes people call these air pockets or low volume nodes. There's a lot of different ways to describe what that is, but it's basically a price that the market apparently gives very little credence to because when the market went to it, it just fell right through it. So the idea here is that if this price level in like the 2690 range, if the market had come down through this price earlier today and had just fallen right through it without doing a lot of trading there, that means that as the market was coming down, nobody decided to step in and buy here. Nobody cared about this price area. Once it got down to this level, most people are thinking, okay, now the next area of support is down here, or whatever the reason is. There was just not a lot of activity. So a lot of times what people are looking for with volume profile is they're looking for low volume nodes to just kind of get ripped right through. Right? That's the reason why people will pay attention to that. The other thing that I've got up here is the weekly profile. The reason I have the weekly profile up is because I like to pay attention to the market making a new high or low on the week late in the week. All right, we have a pretty big range this week, right? We got a massive range this week, okay, all the way down from 24 up to where the market is now. All right, that's obviously not typical. I mean, in this situation, in this volatility, it could be typical, but we're not used to seeing that. And what I usually like to look for is if you are seeing one of these potential setups. This is another thing that we try to put out there as an idea to try to prevent someone from stepping in front of a freight train, so to speak, is if the market is breaking out of its weekly range late in the week, that is often a change in sentiment or it's significant. And if you are looking for a counter trend trade, this is another thing you may want to watch out for because if there, for example, is a new high made into the close today, are you really going to want to short that when we're at the high of the week right now and who knows what could happen in the next eight. I mean, it's 2:52 in the afternoon right now, so there's not a lot of time, but the idea here is that if you see a valid short setup based on everything we've gone through so far, but the market is breaking out of a weekly range, that is usually a change in sentiment that could precede an extended move that would hurt you. So it's not that I sit here and stare at the weekly profile all week. I just tend to pay attention to it a little closer at the end of the week than in the beginning of the week because visually it's impressive. I mean, when you see the market trading around its ends, its upper end or lower end in the latter half of the week, it's just it elicits for me an ominous feeling that says, okay, be careful here because if the market is traveling all this way and we're looking at pretty much rare air, as they say, up here or down here, that is something that I would be very wary of using in a counter trend environment. Okay. Now I'll show you briefly how we get the volume profiles up here and how you can put two of them next to each other like this. Basically, you're creating one and then duplicating it and making it a different time frame, daily and then weekly. So it's not a lot of work, but if you right click and go to studies, you'll see, and by the way, there's another couple videos that we have that are entirely geared towards volume profile that are much more detailed than what I'm going to do here today. But you're basically looking for a study called volume by price. So I would just add that to my studies here like this, and then apply it. And then this is what it looks like by default. So this study is the same as this study, believe it or not. All right, it's one of those highly customizable studies. So in the settings section, there's a few things that we need to change. The most obvious one is the visible bars graph period type. We don't want to build the profile based on how many bars we see. We want to build the profile based on a fixed unit of time, which in this case is going to be a day. So I'm going to change this to multiple profiles based on fixed time. And then that is now looking at this field, days, and the number of days here, which are default to days, and it defaults to 1. So I just push apply, and you see the profile is now adjusted. Now, it still doesn't look the way I want. So the things that I would do, to make this more in line with how I want it to look would be the following. All right, the first thing is I like to put them on the right side of the screen. So right align volume bars, I would change that from no to yes. All right, that puts it over here like that. I like to use the transparent draw style because it just is easier to see and it doesn't clog up the rest of the screen. So I would just change that from no to yes, push apply. And then you can notice that you can change the draw style here. Mine says 50. You could change that to a bigger number if you want it to be more transparent, like that, for example. The bid and ask volume coloring method, that is separating the bid volume and the ask volume into green and red. I actually usually turn that off because I don't really make decisions based on that. It just kind of looks cool, but it's not very useful for me, and I don't want to be distracted. So I usually change that to none, which makes it all just kind of blue like that. Okay. Couple other things that are more visual or aesthetic in nature is how wide do you want the bars to be? Does it bother you that the bars are taking up this much of the screen and getting all into the middle of the chart? It bothers me. Okay, I can't stand it. So what I usually do is look at this section here that says maximum volume bar width type, which you'll see defaults to period length, which basically means that it's basing the percentages on the full day, even if we're not looking at the full day. I don't really like to do it that way. I like to do it based on the width of the window. So if the window is shorter, it gives me smaller bars, and I like to lower the percentage of the window width to a really small number, like 25 or 20, like that. So now the volume profile, the maximum that it can go is 25% of the window. So it's not going to get in my way, and you can even make it lower. A lot of times I'll actually go lower than this, like that. All right, so I can still see the curvature of it, right? It's not quite as detailed, but I can see what I need to see. All right, now a couple other things that are typically useful. The value area, do you want to highlight the value area, which again, as we said before, that 70% of the volume is traded inside that range. Okay, that's now a value area highlighted in gray. I don't mind that. You can extend the value area if you want the lines to extend. You can choose like end of period or end of window. I would usually do end of period, which basically gives you an extension line for the value area high and low. That's a little redundant because on our main window, we've already got the value area high and low. So a lot of times I will have that visible, but when I have it already on the chart, I don't need it again. So in this case, I'll choose none. And then the point of control, I definitely want to see where that is. Okay, the point of control is that pink line that basically, excuse me, that was extend point of control. I don't usually extend it in this context, but I will highlight it. Highlight point of control, yes. So we can see the price at which the majority of the volume is traded in the session is visible. Okay. The other thing that's important to leave on yes is this thing that says allow side-by-side profiles on right side. That defaults to yes, so you don't really have to worry about this, but this is basically what's going to allow us to have two profiles right next to each other. There's another one in here that I want to find that says always display last profile within view. I usually have this set to yes as well. That means that this is always going to be visible here, even if we're scrolling back. So I can always see it here on the right side. So once I have this looking the way I want, I could just hit apply, hit OK, and then I could actually duplicate it. Notice how the volume by price name here changed to VBP 1 day. So with this study, because we're changing really the structure of it, it's going to tell us the description of the study here right in the name. I'll just duplicate it, and then in the settings section, I'll change this time period for fixed time to weeks, like that. And the order in which they are is determined by the order in this list they are. So I'm actually going to move the weekly up by clicking move up like this, and then they're going to flip. So if you look here now, we can see the daily profile on the left, and then this weekly profile on the right. Everything we need is there. We got the value area for the week if we want it. We've got the value area for the day. We've got the point of control for the week, the point of control for the day. There's a lot of good data in here. We can see low volume areas. We can see high volume areas. To me, this is a lot of good information. And as long as you keep the drawing transparent, even maybe more transparent than this, it's not too distracting. So that's where the volume profile comes in. In the main screen, it's not that visible. You can see I don't really see that much of it. Really what I'm looking at is, are we near the ends? Okay, in this case, we are kind of near the end here. I would be very cautious to go short the market if it were making a new high in the week on a Thursday, especially on a Friday as well, especially if it's late on a Friday. Because who knows what can happen then. You get one of these short squeeze situations that things just really get crazy. Plus, you got to keep in context with the political situation, geopolitical situation, and everything going on right now. It's a time to be especially cautious. So hopefully that is helpful in explaining more about this chart setup. There's a couple things left for us to cover. We're going to get to them. Thanks again for your interest and your attention. We very much appreciate it. We'll see you at the next one.